So our next reader and our last one for round 3 is somebody who I've known for quite a number of years. Abra Staffin-Wiebe loves optimistic science fiction, cheerful horror, and dark fantasy. Dozens of her stories have appeared in publications including Tor.com, Fantasy and Science Fiction, Escape Pod, and Odyssey Magazine. She lives in Minneapolis, where she wrangles her children, pets, and the mad scientist she keeps in the attic. Everybody should keep a mad scientist in the attic. When not writing or wrangling, she collects folktales and photographs whatever stands still long enough to allow it. Her most recent book, The Unkindness of Ravens, is an epic fantasy story about trickster gods and favors owed. Enjoy a longer excerpt at her website, aswiebe.com. More unkindness, HTML. Come on up, Abra.
Thank you, Michael. So a little bit of backstory before this excerpt that I'm going to be reading. The heir to the throne, there are a number of heirs, and this one doesn't have what it's going to take to win the literal battle for succession. So he attempts to go into hiding, and through a series of misfortunes, winds up on a battlefield. The air of the battlefield rang with the metallic shriek of clashing swords, the harsh breath of the fighters, and the groans and sobs of the dying. Feet trumped past Inari's hiding place, but nobody inspected it closely enough to determine that one of the bodies was only pretending to be dead. Once a warrior fell so close that his outstretched arm nearly brushed Inari's face. The squirrel tattoo on his hand marked him as being born to band squirrel and house rat. Inari sent up a brief prayer that the warrior's god would find him worthy. Inari would have sworn that it was impossible to fall asleep in the middle of a battle, but the clash of swords sounded more and more like the music of the shining silver chimes that had lulled him to sleep for years. Ramesh's preparation must still be affecting him, he thought drowsily. His eyes drifted shut. He woke screaming. Agony radiated from his right eye. Spikes of pain drove into his cheek. His muscles thrummed and his bones vibrated in sympathetic torment. It felt as though molten lead were being poured over his head. He kept screaming and flung his arm up in front of his face. A loud caw next to his ear deafened him. The spikes were wrenched from his cheek and feathers brushed against his hand. He could see with his left eye, but not his right. Twilight had spread over the battlefield. The warriors were pulling back to their camps before it grew too dark to tell friend from foe. He reached up and touched his eye, and his world splintered into shards of pain that dropped him into unconsciousness. When he swam up to awareness again, the entire right half of his face was hot and swollen. His throat felt raw, as if he continued screaming in his sleep. He could not open his right eye. Night's curtain had fallen fully. The only light came from a sliver of moon and what looked like twinkling stars moving across the sky and across the battlefield. Inari shook his head groggily. Stars didn't move across the ground. He stared at the column of lights crossing the field. All he could see were dark figures. His sight was limited. Very well, he would use the other tools he had. He quieted his breathing as much as he could and strove to pick out any noise not native to the battlefield. At first, all he heard were the groans of the dying, the snarls of feral dogs warning each other away from their chosen carrion, and a rhythmic talk-talk like the tapping of a speckled-breasted woodpecker. He focused past these sounds. At the very edge of his hearing, he could make out a low muttering, but try as he might, he couldn't understand the words. The other noises on the battlefield interfered too much. Though it was the last thing he wished to do, He inhaled deeply. He smelled blood, piss, and excrement mixed with putrefaction and rot. His stomach roiled and acid vomit burned its way up his throat. He swallowed hard, waited a moment, and tried again. And I apologize to all of you who are eating while I'm reading this. This time, he noticed a smoky scent underlying the stench of battle. The smoke, the lights, and the strange sounds came together to paint a picture in Inari's mind. The snaking column of lights was composed of Lord Raven's priests. What was on a battlefield was theirs. As their chant consoled the spirit of the dead, they positioned a spike above the corpse's forehead and cracked open the skull with 2 swift blows of their hammer. Talk, talk. And the spirit was released from the body. The smoke from their censers took the place of the cremation pyre and showed the spirit the way back to the god of their house. The priests would kill Inari without hesitation when they discovered who he was. Inside the city walls, bound under the laws decreed by the 8 houses, they would not move openly against the heir of another house. Only the royal heirs were given that freedom, and only during the succession struggle. Even then, the heirs were expected to use their personal resources and whatever blessings their god granted them. On the battlefield, the Raven priests labored under no such compunctions. Shortly after they saw the royal birthmark on Inari's chest, there would be one less contender against the Raven royal heir. And I think my time is up, so I will say this is The Unkindness of Ravens, and I have copies over there for sale. There's also a sign up for my newsletter, which gets you an ebook, not of this, but another ebook that you can read if you like. So come and find me during the break.
You should sign up for Abra's newsletter because she also runs a market list, which is in like a searchable Excel document, and it's the greatest thing ever.